After the form content has been validated, you can build the body of the email message and test it. As long as the form fields have meaningful name attributes, you can automate the process with a for each loop. And the for each loop goes at the bottom of mail process PHP. And it needs to go inside a conditional statement because you don't want it to run if there are any problems with the submitted content in the form. So if not suspect and not missing and not errors. And inside that conditional statement you need to initialize a variable that will hold the message and start it off as an empty string. Then the for each loop will go through each item in the expected array, which contains the names of all the form fields that you expect to be submitted. And we'll use item as a temporary variable inside the for each loop. This loop needs to handle the value submitted in each form field. And in this earlier loop, I used the variable to assign each post array element to a new variable based on its key. So post name became simply name, post email became email, and so on. And in this loop, what I want to do is to assign the value of each form element to a variable called val, so I can handle it. And ideally what I'd like to be able to do the first time that it runs is to access name. The second time I'd like to access email, and so on. And the way in which I do that is to use item as a variable. So the first time that it runs, because the first element in the expected array is name, this becomes the variable name. The second time it becomes the variable email, and so on. But I also want to make sure that the field isn't empty. So what I'm going to do is create another conditional statement here, if is set, and then use the variable. So it gets each one each time as it goes through. If is set item and not empty. Again, the variable item. Let's move the cursor out of the way. And then we'll indent that a little bit. There's the closing curly brace. And if it is empty, we'll assign to val the string not selected. At the moment, the form contains only text input fields and a text area, but some form elements submit their values as an array, so I want to create a comma-separated string of array values, so I need to check if val is an array. So if is array val, and then I'm going to use the delightfully named implode function. And what the implode function does is it joins together an array with a string. So the first argument to implode is the string that you want to use to join the array elements. I've used a comma followed by a space, and then the array itself. So if val is an array, it'll be converted into a comma-separated string. The next step is to use item, which is the form field name, and remove any underscores or hyphens in the name and replace them with spaces, because we're going to use this as a label in the message. So item equals str underscore replace, And the first argument to string replace can be an array itself, and the array will consist of two strings, one which is an underscore and the second element is a hyphen. And the second argument is what you want to put in place of that, so it'll be a space, so that's a string which just consists of a space, and then the final part is the bit that you want to work on, which will be item. And I can see that my editor is telling me I forgot the closing parenthesis of the array. So that's it. Now let's add the label and the value of that particular item to the message. So it's message and the combined concatenation operator, because we're going to be building the string by adding new pieces to it all the time, and then use UC first to capitalize the first letter of the label, so item, then concatenation operator, and we'll double quoted string, which will be a colon and a space followed by val, and then a carriage return new line character, carriage return new line character. So this will use the name of the form field as a label with a capital first letter followed by a colon, then its value and a couple of new lines. When sending an email, it needs to be wrapped at 70 characters in each line, so there's a convenient word wrap function that we can use. So message equals word wrap, and then the string that you want to wrap, which is the message, and then the number of characters in each line, or the maximum number of characters in each line, which is 70. For testing purposes, I want to create a variable that will tell me that the mail has been sent. So mail sent equals true. It's only a few lines of code, but it does an awful lot. Now let's just save that and go into the form, and we need to do some testing here. Go down to the bottom of the HTML and put in a couple of pre-tags to make sure that everything looks okay when it's displayed on the screen, and then a PHP block which will display the values that we've created in the mail processing script. So if the form has been submitted and there are no problems with it, what this will do will just be display the value of the message and the value of the header. So you can check that everything's okay before trying to deploy this on your remote web server. So let's save that page and test it in a browser. So I'll fill in a few quick details. and then click the Send Comments button. And down at the bottom of the page here, we've got the message as it will be displayed in an email, and then the headers. And we can see that everything is working absolutely as expected. So we're ready to move on to the next stage, which will be to send the email.